Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you all are doing well today. Elliot here. Welcome back to the Fragrance Well. I'm managing. Guys, the pollen here in Central Florida is off the charts, and I have been struggling for weeks, but last night was by far the worst, and it's kind of carried over in today, so that's why I don't have my glasses. My eyes are dry and itchy. Yeah, it's a mess, but the show must go on. So, I was reminded recently that the top 10 best fragrance categories on Fragrantica are out. I've got the list up now, and I'm just gonna kind of go through it, give my thoughts. I don't have every fragrance that is on the list. I'm pretty sure my normal watchers know now I'm not the kind of a reviewer that just kind of picks up everything. It's just not what I want to do with my collection, but I do happen to have at least a number of the bottles on the list, or at least a representation of some of the fragrances on the list, but we're gonna go through them right now. So before we get started, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so I got the list up on my screen right now. We're going specifically over the best perfume for men 2023. That's obviously what's going to appeal to most of my viewers. I saw a few others I thought about going over, but we're just going to stick with this one. So at the 10th spot for the most popular perfume on Fragrantica for 2023, it is by Kilian's Angel Share. By Kilian's Angel's Share. When did this fragrance come out? Now, interestingly enough, they have it listed as a special edition anniversary version. Is that different than this version here? I didn't even know there was such a thing. I forget when this came out, but anyway, this is obviously a super popular fragrance from the house of Kilian, super popular in the community. This is also just FYI, the most popular unisex perfume for 2023. Very gourmand, a lot of nutty notes, very sweet and spicy. Kind of has a holiday vibe to it, quite boozy as well. Some nice smoky woods also at the base of the fragrance. It's a lovely scent. I thoroughly enjoy it. I haven't worn it a ton, just because I think there are some other things that are more interesting. But when I do wear it, I enjoy the fragrance. And honestly, this doesn't surprise me at all that it's at the 10th spot. So at the 10th spot, once again, this is by Kilian Angel Share. Alright, so I don't have a bottle for the one in the 9th spot, but this is very interesting to me that it is in the 9th spot. From the house of Lattafa, it is Khamrah, which, if you're very familiar with this fragrance, you know it is a clone of Angel Share. I mean, the bottle looks very similar, except it's more square. Now, I personally have not gotten my nose on this. I have heard other people talk about it, and I've heard them say that it is definitely an Angel's clone Share, but it does offer its own spin on it. It's not like a one-to-one clone. It's just very, very close, definitely heavily inspired by. And, Lattafa, for the most part, is a clone house. They clone other popular scents, and I think this one, at this point, is definitely the most popular Angel Share clone. So I can't share my thoughts on the smell of it, but I do find it interesting that it is one slot higher than the original, but I imagine that is so because, hey, this fragrance is a lot cheaper. It's at the 9th spot, and if Angel Share is popular, it makes sense that if it's a really good clone, it's going to be a little bit higher because more people are likely to have it. So once again, in the 9th spot, that is Lattafa Khamrah. All right, guys, coming in at the 8th spot from the house of Valentino, it is Born in Roma Intense, which I also do not have a bottle of. And I honestly don't think I'll ever own a bottle of any of the Born in Roma fragrances. I don't particularly like them. However, I would say that Born in Roma Intense is definitely the best iteration of that line to this point. So I have gotten my nose on it, obviously, but I haven't tested it. I only smelled it maybe once or twice, so I can't really give a bunch of thoughts on it. I just thought when I did smell it, like, yeah, I do like this better than Born in Roma Yellow Dream, Coral Fantasy, etc., etc. But it's still a little overly, just ridiculously sweet to me. I would say that one is a little bit more balanced, but fragrances that just kind of offer up sweetness and not much else are definitely not my jam, and as a result, I'm not that much of a fan of the Born in Roma fragrances. So I don't have a bottle of that, and I don't plan to get one ever, but I do think Born in Roma Intense is the best version of that fragrance, and it is certainly popular, and it's also a 2023 proper release, because the other fragrances up to this point are not 2023 releases, but this one is a 2023 release, and it makes sense for it being on the best perfume list. So once again, that is Valentino Uomo, Born in Roma Intense. All right, guys, coming in at the 7th spot, we got one from the house of Tom Ford, and that is Tom Ford Noir Extreme Parfum. Now, I don't have the Parfum version. I do have the Eau de Parfum, which I think smells absolutely wonderful. Great fragrance. Definitely love it. Now, I've gotten my nose on and tested the Parfum. I just don't have a bottle yet. I've seen it actually going for some really good prices now, and it seems to be a little bit more readily available. So I probably will pick that one up because I do think I would enjoy wearing that one better than this. It is really a true concentration flanker. I find it to be richer, a little less complex, and kind of really honing in on the notes that really make Noir Extreme a very popular fragrance. So it's just a denser version of that Noir Extreme DNA, but it's kind of left up to the eye of the beholder, so to speak, or the eye of the smeller. I guess that's what you would say in terms of if you really think it's better or not. But I did thoroughly enjoy it when I tested it, and it gives me something that Noir Extreme doesn't in terms of it just being more dense. So once again, at the 7th spot, that is Tom Ford Noir Extreme Parfum. All right, at the 6th spot, you got one from Giorgio Armani. It is Acqua Di Gio Parfum, which is basically the replacement to this right here, Acqua Di Gio Profumo. You guys know how I feel about Acqua Di Gio in general. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't think it sucks. It's just not one that really intrigues me, but this one in particular does. That's why I have a bottle of this one. I remember when I got my nose on the Parfum, I was completely disappointed in it. It's basically this. It's the same thing, but they kind of rearranged the intensities of some of the notes. You also got to figure there's probably some ingredient changes, maybe even some regulation changes in terms of what they can use. But in my opinion, the incense and the patchouli in this one right here, the Profumo version, is what really makes this scent special in my opinion, and I think why in the community it's the most popular one. They turn those things down. In particular, I really do not pick up the patchouli that much in the new Parfum version. So for me, it is a complete letdown, but I think that honestly makes it a little bit more wearable for a lot of other people because some of those heavy notes are not necessarily as widely accepted amongst the masses. So I could see why this is a top popular one because it kind of turned down the heavier stuff, making it a little bit easier to wear. And also, I think, you know, Acqua Di Gio is always going to be a very popular scent in some way on these types of lifts. So once again, for the 6th spot, that is Giorgio Armani's Acqua Di Gio Parfum. All right, so coming in at the 5th spot, you got one from Azzaro. It is going to be the Most Wanted Parfum. I do not have extensive experience with this fragrance. The only wanted fragrance I have is Wanted by Night. I'm not even going to pull out a bottle because, as you probably know, Wanted by Night and the Most Wanted flankers are completely different. So I have smelled this fragrance. I thought it did smell good. At a particular point, I really, really wanted it, but I would say I kind of got over that because it was just too hard to find, and honestly, the price point I wasn't really okay with. And since then, I've gotten other things that I think kind of give me what that fragrance gives me in a much better way, if I'm being honest. And I can't really talk about the scent because it's been well over a year since I smelled it. And again, that was in passing at the store. I didn't test it on my skin. I didn't take a sample home, so I can't say I just know everything about the fragrance. But I do know it smells very good, and I know it is very, very popular within the community, so I could certainly understand why it is a top 10 fragrance. So once again, that is Azzaro, the Most Wanted Parfum. All right, so coming in at the 4th spot, you got one from the house of Hermes, and this is Terre de Hermes Eau Givree. Finally got a bottle of one of these represented. Terre de Hermes Eau Givree. Now, you guys know how I feel about this scent. This is, in my opinion, the best summer release of 2022, designer summer release that is, which was the year when this was actually released, but we see it is here on the 2023 most popular scents list for men. I can't remember exactly when this came out, but I think it was near the end of 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And I know me personally, I didn't get my bottle until 2023. So that's why I think it is pretty much on this list is when most people kind of actually got a bottle of it at a discounted rate, which is, you know, a lot better than the retail rate, obviously. I love this fragrance. Basically smells like grapefruit juice. Granted, this one is not for everybody, but I guess there's enough popularity with it for it to make the top 10 list. So once again, in the 4th spot, it is Terre de Hermes Eau Givree. All right, guys, so for the third most popular fragrance, it's coming from the house of Jean Paul Gaultier. It is going to be Beau Le Parfum, which is also a 2022 release. And again, I think it's on the 2023 list because it got more widely available in terms of discounters in 2023, because before it was always selling out. It still sells out somewhat regularly, but I don't think it's at the same rate. I've gotten my nose on this. I like it. I think it's all right. I haven't had extensive experience with it, but if you know anything about Beau, it's very fruity and kind of tropical smelling, almost like a summertime beachside juvenile scent, so to speak. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It smells very, very youthful. At one point, I was thinking about picking up a bottle of it, but price point, I was like, no. And then it would sell out, so I would just move on to something else. But I could see why this fragrance is a top one on the list. It is a nice fragrance that does kind of appeal to the masses. It's certainly going to be one that'll get you some positive attention. So I see why this one is top 3 on the list. So once again, from the house of Jean Paul Gaultier, that is Beau Le Parfum. That's coming in at the 3rd spot. All right, coming in at the number 2 spot, you got one from the house of Givenchy. It's Gentleman Reserve Privee. Givenchy Gentleman Reserve Privee. So this one is still holding strong in terms of momentum. Last year, this is a 2022 release, so it's also another carryover. Same thing, it got a little bit easier to find and get at a discounted rate in 2023. So more people were able to kind of get their nose on it and, upvote it, so to speak. Very popular scent. I do think this is one of the best flankers. I still don't think it's the best gentleman fragrance, but I can easily see why it's the most popular. You got the iris that's here, but then you got added booziness, a little bit of nuttiness and some woodiness with this one. It's very, very nice. And I do think it is worthy to note that Gentleman Society, the 2023 release, which did come out fairly early in the year, so there was enough time for it to make its way onto the popularity list. And it didn't take that long for that one to get on discounters either. It's not here. It's not in the top 10. I don't know where it falls overall, but this one here, obviously a clear winner over Gentleman Society. And frankly, to me, this is far better than Society. I do know the new Intense version, or whatever it is called, did just come out, so we'll see how that one does. And I certainly look forward to getting my notes on that, see if they made some improvements. So once again, at the 2nd spot from the house of Givenchy, it's Gentleman Reserve Privee. All right, guys, the number 1 fragrance on Fragrantica for men for the year of 2023 is from Jean Paul Gaultier. It is Male Elixir. Jean Paul Gaultier, Male Elixir. Give me my credit right now. I called this. I said that when this came out, this is going to be one of the most popular, if not the most popular, men's scent for the year of 2023. I called it, and I was right. It is right there, plain to see. Number 1. Listen, when I smelled it, I was like, first of all, this is very well done. It stays true to that original Le Male DNA. It just beefens it up. It's the sweetest iteration, but it's not like ridiculously sweet, but it is very heavy, very full, and a really well done scent. And I also think it's worthy to note that Jean Paul Gaultier has 2 fragrances in the top 3, so that is impressive. Granted, it's just Fragrantica. It doesn't really count for anything because they're not the top in sales, but I'm just pointing that out. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoy this scent. Do I think it's just the best overall release of the year? No, out of the ones I've gotten my hands on. I just said I think this is going to be a very popular one, and it is very well done, and I certainly wanted to get my hands on it when I first tested it out. I was thoroughly impressed. So I do think it is a deserving fragrance to be at least at the top, if not the top 1, for a list like this where, it's just enthusiasts kind of giving their input. So once again, at the top spot from Jean Paul Gaultier, it was Male Elixir. All right, guys, so that was the top 10 fragrances on Fragrantica men's releases. Let me know if you want me to look at one of the other lists. I imagine you probably don't, but hey, I could be wrong. Also, what do you think of the list? Did the community get it right, so to speak, or do you completely disagree? We already know this is completely subjective. There's going to be some disagreements. I certainly don't agree with some of the fragrances I'm looking at on this list, but it is what it is. The votes are in, and the people have spoken. I appreciate you guys watching all the way into the end. Please remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.